this beginning time of a sitting period, it's really important to not do these, do that transition from whatever you were doing to your meditation time, not to do that on autopilot. It's like that moment, those moments when we're dropping into the experience of the body. Can be a bit of a wake-up call. Oh, the body's like this. It's like greeting an old friend, but maybe more like coming back to a messy space that we wish we didn't have to come back to. Oh, this is the body. In a real sense, the body doesn't lie. That energetic quality of the body. And we'd like to be comfortable, and we do what we can to be comfortable in the sitting posture. It's not about taking a sitting posture that doesn't work for us. But we find something in the body that's true of all of life, which is, at some level, it's just not workable. Right? Can't be made perfect, the body. And even when the body does feel good for a while, then it changes, So there's a lot of wisdom, even as we make the final adjustments for a sitting posture and cultivate a posture that both supports alertness and that sense of relaxation and release. And practice not being confused by how it is in the body, or not confused by the thought of wishing our body were different than it is right now. Probably all of us who've been practicing for a while have spent countless minutes, times in meditation, subtly trying to fix the body, trying to find that sweet spot where everything seems just right in the body. And what our wisdom teaches us is it's more about harmonizing with the body as it actually is than trying to make our bodily experience different than it is. Can this be okay? Sitting feels like this. Can this be okay? Can I be undefended? Can I be relating in a kind way, in a non-controlling way to the sitting body, the breathing body here? Do I need to be in conflict with my experience here in the body? Does that help me, or does that help anybody? No. A lot of our wise effort in meditation practice is the effort to not fall back into our habits that don't help me, don't help another, don't help anybody. That energy, that effort of persistence, I'm persisting and not falling back into habits that are stressful. So we cultivate a stability and continuity of present moment awareness in order to take care of ourselves in this deeper sense. Not taking those off-ramps into stressful thinking, stressful reactivity. And even when we catch the mind caught up in some reactive pattern, then our wise effort is to not feed that stressful reactivity, to see it, to feel what's here to feel, so that we learn the difference between feeding it and leaving it alone, being intimate, but leaving it alone, unfed, so that it naturally falls away because we haven't fed it. And generally, we feed reactive patterns by identifying them as I, me, or mine, my problem. So even when we seemingly on the surface are trying to solve the problem of bodily stress or mental stress, if we're taking it personally as a problem that I have to solve, generally we're feeding the problem, making it worse, digging the groove a little deeper. That habit becomes stronger. And although the practice is relatively simple, it is hard, because to be really present with the body and present with the activity of the mind, and to, in a sense, to let it show its colors without getting confused and without falling into reactive patterns. It takes a lot of confidence and the effort to not take those off-ramps into reactivity. So we'll continue in silence now, doing our best to be at ease, sitting right in the middle of our experience, using meditative anchors like being with the breath or being more generally with the sensations of the sitting body, noticing the other predominant experiences that come to mind, acknowledging them as just that experience being known. And in particular, sensitive to those off-ramps into self-centered dramas of one kind or another. And sensing the stress when the mind goes down those off-ramps. Starting to get caught up in some drama. We need to feel what it feels like to be entangled. The letting go comes from knowing the stressfulness of these entanglements. If we're interested in being free, released, no matter the conditions, then we practice being intimate with the different physical and mental conditions that come and go. Noticing all the subtle and not so subtle ways to defend ourselves, to react, and realizing that we can sense the impulse without acting on it. Sense the impulses to think, to plan, to worry, without acting on them. Just feel what they feel like as they arise as an impulse. So we'll continue to sit for another 2 or 3 minutes. So begin to move the body when you're ready. Stretch a little if you'd like. And thanks for showing up, everyone. Nice to see you here. Grateful that Shelley Graff and Wynn Fricke covered for me the last few weeks. I was teaching first on the East Coast and then on the West Coast. Good to be home on this beautiful holiday weekend. One of the things when I'm teaching retreats, people, on a retreat for anywhere from a long weekend to 9 days, depending, sometimes even longer retreats, but the whole issue of what is wise effort comes to mind. And of course, it's true also just in daily life practice. We tend to swing, I'm sure some of you have noticed this in your practice, we tend to swing from getting on that high horse, I'm going to do my practice, I'm going to concentrate my mind, I'm going to connect with the breath and sustain awareness with the breath, I'm not going to go down that pathway, take that off-ramp into worry or planning or fantasies or, whatever our tendencies, habits are. And then, of course, that doesn't work. And so we tend to swing all the way into, I give up, I don't know what I'm doing, this isn't really working for me, I probably started my practice too late, or my mind is just not designed to do this mindful awareness stuff. Other people seem to be able to do it, but not me. Or maybe the whole thing is a hoax, Just another cultish activity that people get obsessed with. It's like the different exercise regimens and diets and other sort of things that people get into. It becomes sort of a cultish thing to do. This is going to make me happy, whatever it is. So it's really worth reflecting on wise effort and seeing it as a significant, if not, I think the whole path can be understood. The whole path of awakening can be understood as this deepening understanding or wisdom about what is the appropriate effort and what is unhelpful effort. Just in terms of, I'm just talking about taking care of ourselves in that deeper sense. Because humans, we're all pretty willing to make effort. I always make this example, use this example, like when you fly and you realize how much of this land has been transformed, mostly not for the better. So humans make a lot of effort. We're not afraid of effort. But, we don't necessarily know how to make effort that actually leads to long-term happiness and peace. We seem pretty good at making efforts that lead to long-term stress and anxiety. So that should be telling, that should bring in some humility about the kind of efforts we make to take care of ourselves. What kind of efforts actually are onward leading? And we're impatient generally, and so we want the answer. I'm willing to make effort, just tell me what to do. But a lot of our earthy wisdom we can count on because it arises from our own experience, is about what doesn't work, what's not helpful. And there's a very telling passage, some of you I'm sure have heard it, because it's repeated a lot, this little teaching from the suttas, the discourses from the time of the Buddha, where somebody asked the Buddha how he crossed the floods. So there are different ways the Buddha talks about what gets in the way of peace and release and happiness. And one of them is this term asawa, which sometimes gets translated as floods, what sweeps our mind away, like sense craving sweeps our mind away. We can get obsessed about things. And wanting to become somebody, wanting to be somebody, right, can sweep us away. I'm this, but I really want to be that. I'm neurotic in this way, but I don't want to be neurotic in that way. I want to be perfect in this other way. And then just generally, we get swept away in ways that we call ignorance or fixed view, self-centered activities, right? Just all those habits of taking things personally, getting fixed, our opinion about this or that. We can get obsessed, get swept away. So the Buddha is asking, this person is asking the Buddha a very sincere question, probably from their own experience. Like, it's really easy for me, and seemingly everyone else I know, to get swept away. So how is it that you no longer get swept away by the floods, right? And the Buddha says, in response to that, I crossed over the floods, found my way beyond the floods by not pushing forward and by not standing still. And he didn't like this answer. It wasn't clear. So, he asked again, how did you cross over without pushing forward and without staying in place. And then this is the instructive. It's still, initially you may not like it, but there's a lot of important clarity or information in how the Buddha responded. He said, when I pushed forward, I got spun about. When I, stayed in place, I sank. So by not pushing forward and not standing in place, I crossed the floods. And the reason I like this, and I think it's really helpful for us, is the Buddha isn't telling us what the answer of wise effort is, or he's saying that what's trustworthy is what we find doesn't work. All the, when we're being present, mindfully aware with some continuity, we notice how we're trying to make stuff happen. And it's pretty easy for us to notice how stressful that is. Like really needing something to happen, like we're having some interaction and we really want it to go well. Well, that itself is stressful, and that needing it to go well also gets it sort of gums up the interaction, needing it to go well. So that's pushing forward. And standing still is sort of getting identified with the thought, life is a setup, there's nothing for me to do, there's no way for me to make volitional effort that actually goes anywhere. Every time I try to make something happen, I just add more stress, so I give up. So that keeps us in this place where we sense the different off-ramps into making that volitional effort and me trying to get somewhere. And we notice those off-ramps of wanting to give up in one way or another. And we don't take any of those off-ramps, right? Because our earthy wisdom from our experience tells us that doesn't help. Giving up does not help. When have we ever moved in a positive direction towards more healing, more happiness, more contentedness, more peace by giving up? I mean, we do get some relief from giving up, right? So if our efforts have been off, well, at least we're not, it's like pounding our thumb with a hammer and we give up. It's probably a good step, right? To stop pounding our thumb with a hammer. So this effort, it really speaks what I've been saying about not pushing forward and not standing still. It really has to do with awareness practice. That's what the Buddha's talking about. I'm sure you've been somewhat, like I have, frustrated because like when we're being mindful, sitting, we want to do something. It feels like I need to do something with my awareness to do this practice. I need to bring my awareness to the breath, or I need to do this or that. But we just end up getting tight in meditation and exhausted, and then the mind just wants to stop. So then we look like we're meditating, but we're planning what we're going to do on Sunday afternoon, or, reviewing the past. So not pushing forward and not standing still in mindful awareness practice, because awareness, we don't actually have to do the awareness. Like just check your own mind right now. Is there awareness? How do you know the mind is aware? Well, in my case, seeing is being known, so there's got to be awareness for seeing to be known. And I heard my voice. Hearing is being known. I heard Dan cough. Hearing is being known. I feel the body sitting. Sensations are being known. I can notice my mind thinking about what I'm going to say. That mental activity is being known. Okay, so there's awareness. But I'm not doing the awareness. I can recognize it. So there is something we do when we practice. We don't just sit and let things happen. Because if we just sit and let habits be habits, then we will just sit and worry and plan. And, the force of habit, like what we normally, the mind is conditioned to do, the ways it's conditioned to think and worry and plan and compare and go to sleep, and all those things will just, that force of habit is just going to express itself. So the something we're doing is we're recognizing the way it is. That's maybe the middle way, or the not pushing forward and the not standing still. We're keeping the present moment in mind. And this keeping the present moment in mind, it really comes from, this, like, how do we, as humans in our busy lives, so many complications and so many beautiful and also horrendous things going on, close at home and in our wider world. And all of those things draw us out into, actions and trying to take care and be helpful and trying to get what we want and get rid of what we don't want. All these ways that we're drawn into the world. And that's not bad, it's inevitable. And it's part of our life, it's not going to go away. We do have these responsibilities to our wider world, to our relationships. But we're not necessarily good for ourselves, or helping others because of this lack of understanding. There's a powerful line from Shantideva. He was a 9th century Buddhist monk, famous person from India. And he said something or wrote something, "This entire world is disturbed with insanity due to the exertions of those who are confused about themselves." Right? People who think that they're clear about good and bad and what should be done, what shouldn't be done. And because of that conviction, they act with a lot of confidence, but we end up with a world like this, where people are being harmed, being taken advantage of, living in ways, us collectively living in ways that seem to, be leading to more suffering, not more healing, more justice, more harmony. So it can inspire us, right from the start, like to be a human being in relationship with the world, something needs to be clarified. That humility, what needs to be clarified? And it's really this, one way to think about it, at least, is this issue of wise effort. And wise effort arises out of understanding what the most important thing is. What is the most important thing? One person describes it, a teacher, as, that deep, trustworthy desire to connect. And we can only connect with what's here. So it's not like connecting with my idea of what's going on in the world. We can only connect to the present moment. And it's so easy to want to solve the problems in my family, the problems in the world, by going into my ideas about things. But this experience we're having right here, sitting in this room, sitting at home on Zoom, this is the world we're living in, right here. And here, of course, includes our thoughts we're having about the world. But those are thoughts arising in our mind here, in this body, at this time, in this moment. And if our way of relating is to be disconnected, not connected, unaware instead of aware, distant instead of right in the middle, willing to feel instead of unwilling to feel what's here to feel, well then that disconnection, there are karmic consequences for all of us being as disconnected as we are so much of the time. This world. We could say that, all of what's off about our families, communities, wider world, is just the natural, lawful reflection of all of us being disconnected in the ways that we are disconnected so much of the time. So if we want a different kind of world, we have to really start there. We have to understand that that's actually the most important thing. Can I be connected? Can I open, feel, see clearly? And what's really in the way are, our minds, we get confused by all those off-ramps about me doing something, me going somewhere, me becoming somebody. That it's not easy to just connect and to let our response, it's not that we stop responding in our lives, it's really like, where can that response best come from? Being connected, being intimate, or being disconnected? So we make the effort, like if we want to take care of our life and take care of the world, we make the effort to be connected and trust that some wise effort or some wise response will come out of being connected. Feeling, sensing, having a more simple, honest, intimate, fearless connection with what's moving in this moment, in our bodies, in our minds, in us, around us. It's almost like in our practice, we're learning to insert this wise, bright, in the sense of awareness, pause, moment by moment by moment. And it doesn't even necessarily slow things down. Like it doesn't need to look weird or awkward because, give me a moment. Give me another moment. Each moment, I need a moment. And it could get, and there can arise that sort of affect that people take on, like almost an aversion to things happening at a fast pace, having to juggle a couple things at the same time. Oh, no, that's unskillful, because no, that's the way the world is sometimes. I mean, sometimes it's slowly paced, but a lot of the times it's not. So that pause gets built right in. Like some of you know this from your practice, when we do have some continuity of present moment awareness, there is a very distinct quality in our mind, in our heart, that we might describe as being spacious. And that spaciousness really has the sense of things slowing down. And it can sound like a paradox, like the mind has a lot of space, the space of equanimity, even the word dispassion. And these are sort of triggering words from some people, like, my God, in a world like this, or if you have a life like I have, dispassion and equanimity are insulting. Like my life or the world I live in doesn't need equanimity and dispassion. It needs reactivity. It needs, so we have that almost as if that spaciousness is either an insult or the wrong way, or, oh, you must be disconnected if you have any space, any calm, any like open-heartedness. lack of fixedness, fixed ideas. You know, that there's not really a way for us to be close, to be intimate, to connect without, whether you don't like these words, dispassion or equanimity, that's okay. But what those words are meant to point to, that's the only way to be intimate with your experience, with your life. And wise action requires being connected. We can't respond appropriately, skillfully, if we're not connecting. If I'm not dispassionate, if I'm not open and spacious, then that means I'm trying to connect with the moment from some fixed view. But that fixedness gets in the way of really connecting, that receptivity. Like I can't, even in this moment, you can, as you're hearing the talk, as you're sitting in the room or sitting online with all of us together, if we're not in that willingness to be receptive, to be open, in a way we're blocking out the moment. So how do we know how to be or how to respond, how to show up, how to be a human being? It's almost like, this may be an oversimplification, but it's almost like we have to drop the mind's attachment to knowing what I'm doing in order to do what I'm doing wisely and skillfully. Like if I'm sitting here trying to give a talk, but at the same time really holding to how the talk should unfold, it doesn't really work. Or you're, raising a child, taking care of a child, but you're really holding to, what your grandma told you is the best way. As opposed to being sensitive. That, like, the information that my mind has, where else would it be? It's still here, but it's the holding on it, or the holding to the idea that I want the talk to go well, or holding to the idea that I want to be a good parent, or a good this, or a good that. It's the attachment that gets in the way of that spaciousness, which gets in the way of being really in the middle, intimate, which is the only place for wise action to arise from. We could say that our sitting practice, like let's say you're fortunate and you can put in 15 minutes, 40 minutes every morning or something like that for your meditation practice. I think it would be helpful for us to use different words sometimes. So yeah, instead of I'm doing my sitting meditation or I'm practicing Buddhist awareness practice, no, I'm going to sit and I'm going to practice being as real as I can be for this amount of time. Nothing contrived. That's why, you can't articulate the instructions in a way that's perfect. But one teacher, a Tibetan Lama, said, he would sometimes even with a loud voice in the middle of a sit say, "Stop meditating." Right? Because it's like people's ideas of meditation would be in the way of just connecting. And the instruction sometimes would be non-distracted, non-meditation. That's what you're supposed to be doing. Non-distracted, non-meditation. Drop your ideas of meditation, right? You could just say, practice non-distraction, or you can say being real. But eventually, whatever you call it, the mind is going to misuse. So you have to we have to instruct ourselves with different words at different times. And eventually we have to develop a felt sense of what is trustworthy, what do I know from my own experience is trustworthy, and what do I know from my own experience is not trustworthy. It's like we may be sitting and there can be some mental content that we can think through that's really juicy and kind of fun. And in our meditations, like we have no distractions. So whatever fantasy or whatever planning I'm doing, it's like not interrupted, so we can go really deep into that. And it can feel good. But if awareness just expands a little, we can sense the limitations of that and sense the mind's dependence on that mental activity. We'll sense that it's not going anywhere in the long haul, in the big picture. It's just more of the same. More of the same. It's like that addiction to thinking my way through life is just that groove is getting dug deeper. That thinking through is going to solve my problems. But we also have a lot of evidence that thinking through is not solving problems in the end. It doesn't mean there isn't a place for it. There is a place for it. But these deeper issues aren't resolved through cognitive activity. We have to really rely on this profound capacity we have to be receptive, to be open, to be aware. And in that development of that, we're sort of strengthening that natural capacity, not by doing the awareness, but by just keep recognizing the awareness. Keep recognizing present moment awareness. And in that space of recognizing present moment awareness, everything is revealed in a sense. That, whatever it is that the mind needs to see, whatever deep spiritual secrets there are, they have to be here, right? Whatever learning needs to happen for us, it's going to happen in any moment when the mind is allowing whatever this is to reveal itself. Another way I think that's useful to remember is like another answer to the question, well, why do you sit every day? Or something like that, or why do you go on retreats? Well, I'm using these various skillful means that humans have come across over many centuries to expose myself to myself. That's kind of what we're doing. Right? We're exposing whatever this is, this human life, we're exposing it to this stability of present moment awareness so that it can be understood for what it is and what it isn't. Because the real danger is us operating with this idea of who we are or what this is that isn't in line with the way it is. That's how the Buddha describes suffering, dukkha. Some of you know that Pali word dukkha, which actually comes from a really earthy thing like a wheel or an axle that's out of true. So the cart doesn't work very well because the wheel or the axle isn't designed in balance. And so, dukkha, suffering, is really a mind that's out of alignment with reality, not harmonizing with reality. We have a very strong, fixed view of what's happening. There's me having my life, wanting this, being this way or that way. But that's something, in a sense, the mind has concocted in the ways that we were conditioned. So we're sort of concocting these, in Buddhist terms, wrong views in somewhat similar ways and experiencing this disharmony. And the expression of these disharmonies is greed, all the hatred, fear, anxiety, and all the disconnection that we see manifesting in our hearts and in our worlds, right? Isn't that? It's not a bad characterization for the world we live in. Well, lots of greed, lots of hate and fear, lots of disconnection. People living their lives but not really connected, not really seeing clearly. And we see it in others. It's not so easy to see in ourselves, but we see other people with distorted views, with views that don't seem in alignment with reality. Well, that's probably us too. It's just harder to see our own delusion. One of the issues with developing wise effort, is that we have to, deeper insight really arises because we make effort. Like we can't really see what there is to see without the effort, but the effort is very particular, like I've been saying. It's really the effort to not keep doing the same thing. It's not so much an effort to do something special, like I'm going to do this special thing like awareness. It's really to stop that movement down the off-ramps. That's an image that one of my teachers uses, Joseph Goldstein, says when we have a little momentum, a little continuity of present moment awareness, it's like we're cruising, being present with the breath, breathing in, present with the breath, breathing out, present with other phenomena as they come up in the moment, arise and pass away. And then all of a sudden there's this big glorious off-ramp. And with the enticing signs, Dairy Queen or whatever it might be. But a lot of times we don't even see the off-ramp. We're already down the off-ramp before we realize the mind is caught up in whatever it's caught up in. And so that's a lot of the practice, is when we're cruising to know we're cruising, like there's presence. So, and to really get that sense of when something carrot dangles in front of us, to realize what that is. That's just that dangling carrot, just that exciting image in my mind, just that exciting or fearful feeling tone that I'm feeling. It's just what it is. It's not more than what it is. So we're learning to, because we're conditioned beings, and so there's going to be a lot of dangling, exciting, and fearful things all around us. But we're not taking the bait. In the Tibetan Buddhist tradition, they talk a lot about the bardo. People have heard that word, maybe? It's an interesting word, and it has a lot to do, not just with death. That's often what we think about. There's this idea, generally, but sort of brought to life, especially in Buddhist practice, that at the time of death, the physical body dies, of course. It has its birth, its aging, and at some point its death. But the mind stream's not the same as that trajectory of the body, right? So the mind continues, but not dependent on a body, because the body's died. And so that's the bardo. And so because we don't have the physical existence, whatever that mind imagines, a lot like a dream state, is the only reality that mind knows. And that mind can imagine the most beatific things, having lunch with the Buddha or whatever, or the most horrific things, right? Just like in a dream. And we have to be able to navigate that. Well, that's really like life, right? Because even no matter our particular life situation, whether we have a lot of good fortune in our lives or a lot of misery and difficulties in our lives, because there's quite a bit of differential there, what humans are faced with. But even in those different contexts, we're constructing much of our reality. And we have to understand, oh yeah, this is the world that this mind is constructing for itself. And we're making the effort to not be confused by our constructions. My wife does something, it triggers insecurity, or it triggers defensiveness, or it triggers whatever it triggers. It's so helpful to be making the wise effort to realize, oh yeah, that's just this mind's, this heart's conditioned stuff getting triggered. And it feels like this. And the impulse is to speak or think in this way, right? So we're not in denial. We're right there with our conditioning, with the the relational thing that's going on, but the practice is not to be confused. And the way we're not confused by it is by being aware of it, seeing it for what it is. Yeah, this personality does have this tendency to be defensive, want to be right, doesn't like being wrong, right? And just to see the living colors of that very natural human conditioned tendency that, I might have. And then we can even talk about it like, boy, I'm feeling this. I'm being triggered in this way. And we can get really familiar over the years, with the ways that we get triggered. And we normalize these triggers. Oh yeah, of course, sometimes it's like this for us. Mark gets triggered in this way, or Wynn gets triggered in that way. It really allows relationships to thrive when we realize we're just a bundle of these off-ramps, these different directions my mind, my heart can go, emotionally, mentally, depending on the different triggers. And so the effort isn't to not have that conditioning, because I don't know any way to not have the conditioning I have. Being conditioned as a male, being conditioned as a white person, being conditioned in this way and that way. I mean, there's so many ways that I've been conditioned. But I have learned how to be aware of my conditioning in ways that allows for a lot more freedom, given that there's this conditioning. And it's the same thing with external conditions that show up that I'm not in control of. Everything from the weather to how people might treat me because they're in a bad mood that has nothing to do with me, right? So there's triggers from my internal conditioning, there are triggers from all the external conditioning, and we don't have to be confused by it. So, the takeaway maybe from this discussion is understanding wise effort, like what am I going to do in my life and in my practice. And really our whole day is practice. It's not just when we're doing our formal set, but it's really important. We should be able to answer to a good friend who's, let's say, into the practice too, when they ask, so, what's the most important thing in your practice? What do you want to keep in mind? We should have a response. What do I want? Like, what is at the top of my priority list? It's not just getting my lunch on the table. It's really about this desire, this trust, this deepening confidence that connecting, bringing that open, spacious, clear, fearless presence is the game changer. It's what allows us in this life, human existence, in so many ways, is a big setup. Think about, through human existence, how many terrible experiences people have had. It's not all bad, clearly, but it's a big setup for so many people. And even the people that have good fortune and have a relatively smooth ride, doesn't mean that they've learned something. So if conditions were to change, they could really be miserable. So how do I build my confidence? Oh yeah, I do know what to do in this moment. I do know what to do in any moment. I can remember this capacity to be awake, to be present. Oh, it's like this. This is being known, or this is being felt. Like, when in doubt, connect. When in doubt, connect. That should be a bumper sticker. When in doubt, connect. We're always in doubt, by the way, So just connect, 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 connect. So let's leave it here. Couple announcements. Sarah Wilson and I will be leading the Community Practice Intensive. We do this twice a year, every June and every December usually. It's going to begin on Monday night, the 2nd of June. It ends Saturday, the 21st, with a day-long retreat. So whatever that is, 18 or 19 days. It's just a chance to up your practice. So just join in if you want. There's more information about what that is on our website. Go to the calendar, look for June 2nd, and you can just click there, and there will be a document that explains how we do that together. We meet on Monday nights and end, like I said, with the day-long retreat. And Annie Nugent, a visiting teacher, who's been a teacher out at IMS in Massachusetts, one of the main centers in this lineage of Buddhism, has been teaching there for 25 years. She'll be in town leading the Twin Cities Vipassana collective retreat that's coming up real soon. And she's going to give a Dharma talk on Saturday night, the 7th. I'll be there introducing Annie. Wonderful teacher. Join in if you want, 7 to 8:30. And our wonderful building committee that's taken care of this beautiful building of ours for many years, they are hosting the twice annual workday this coming Saturday, the 31st, 9 to 1. It's really a fun time in community. They usually have a meal at the end of that. If you can't be here the whole time, 9 to 1, just come when you want. We do some deeper cleaning and also some maintenance projects, so join in for that. And then feel free to stay for small groups. Rock's going to organize all of you on Zoom in small groups who want to stay. These are always optional. They're 15 minutes. We end at 12 noon. Just a chance to get to know a few people in the community. Each person gets a chance to check in, what they heard in the talk, what makes sense, what they want to bring home. And then usually there's 5 or so minutes just for open discussion. So if you just stay, then we'll organize you into groups of 3 or 4. Otherwise, have a good week, everybody. Hope to see some of you next week. Thanks for coming.